Well, howdy everyone, and welcome to day 4 of our Faith at Work 5-day virtual event. And again, I am so excited that you chose to join us today. I'm Bobby Albert with Values Driven Culture. And, when I was a real little boy, and uh, all my friends were building like model cars and model ships. Well, I was the weird one. I was building model rocket ships. And have dreamed, it's been a dream since I was a little kid that I was going to be an astronaut someday. Of course, you can tell I didn't make it, but not yet, not yet. Because on my bucket list is still that someday I want to travel in space. And so I like for you to share in our chat window just one thing that's on your bucket list. Oh, there's visit the Holy Land. Thank you, Bob. Skydive. Woo, man, that scares me. I'll go on a rocket ship, but I won't go skydiving. So oh, a hot air balloon. Now that sounds like fun. I think I might have to. Oh, there's playing Pebble Beach with Jesus. Now that's interesting. Oh, a coast to coast trip with my kids. Now, boy, hey, that would be you. You know, you may be insane that when you got through with that one. Well, I appreciate you making some comments there. And well, here, look here. Now, this is one more serious here is have my adult children become saved. Now, that's a good one, especially with the message we got today. So, one thing else I want to encourage you is to turn on your video. But before introducing our guest speaker, I want to mention, like I have in the other days, that our guest speaker today will be giving every attendee a free gift at the end of this main session before we go into the Q&A session. And also, I want to share with you that if you weren't here yesterday, that since the quality of the questions from our attendees during the Q&A session and the insightful answers from our guest speakers, well, we are making all remaining Q&A sessions open to everyone. And I hope you plan to stay with us for the entire 1 hour and find out for yourself how good the Q&A sessions are. And after we're finished with the main session. And finally, I wanted to mention as well, I continue to get emails, people asking about the recordings of these sessions. And the recordings of all 5 days will be available to those who take advantage of the special offer. And will you just find in a link in the chat window for you to check it out? And I think it'll send you to a page that will help you walk you through so you can obtain the recordings of all 5 days. Well, I'd like to introduce our speaker now. Our guest speaker who's today is Dr. Doug Fagerstrom, and he's president and CEO of Marketplace Chaplains. He has served in various pastoral ministerial positions, adjunct professor at 3 colleges, coached man, this is something. This is really special to me. Is coached over 100 church planners, consulted large churches, authored or compiled 14 books. Doug, did you sleep any? And Doug and his wife, and she's real involved in a ministry activity as well. They have one daughter and two grandkids. Doug, my friend, welcome to Faith at Work.
Well, thank you, Bobby. I loved your first word of greeting, howdy. There's no question that we're coming live out of Texas, and you bring that wonderful greeting to us. I just want to applaud and commend you for bringing us all together at this time. And, you know, it's been quite a year. And I think it's just so obvious we all need each other so very much. And God is using you as a wonderful connector and facilitator for everyone on this event. And I know we all say, thank you, Bobby.
Well, thank you for those kind comments, my friend. And Doug's topic today is providing exceptional employee care. But before we get into Doug's topic, Doug, I'd like for you to just take a moment here and share how the Lord led you to Marketplace Chaplains. And could you take 30 seconds and share that with us?
Well, I hope I can do it in 30. I doubt it, but it all started when I was 15 years old. I was in a Youth for Christ group with my peers in Holland, Michigan. The speaker's name was Bill McKee. His text was Isaiah chapter 6. His question to all of us was, if you don't go back to your high school on Monday morning and share Jesus, who will? And he said, if you're willing, would you stand right where you are and say, here, my Lord, send me? Well, I stood and I made that fearful commitment, not knowing what God was going to do. And I went back to my high school, shared Jesus, and three of my best buddies came to Christ. And I realized that the gospel really does work. And that's when God grabbed a hold of my life, introduced me to my wife, Donna, as a teenager in Youth for Christ. We often say 4 churches and 4 seminaries later, I got a call from a headhunter friend of mine who said, Doug, I'm calling for you today. It's with Marketplace Chaplains. I said, I don't know them. They don't know me. Why are you calling? And he said, well, let me read the 8 bullet points of what they're looking for. I listened. He said, what do you think? I said, I don't know what I think, but I know what I heard. You just read the last 35 years of my life, almost chronologically. And sometimes that's just the way God works. And then I heard that clarion call again, as if I was 15 years old. And it was simply this: if I don't bring Jesus into the workplace, who will? And I think I'm joined with hundreds of people on this call right now who are hearing the same question. If we don't bring Jesus into the workplace, who will? And so God has led us here, and it's been wonderful enjoying the favor of God.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's real timely. And Doug, could you share one of your points of interest you'd like to share with us today?
Well, you know, one of the questions is exceptional leaders care for their employees, and they show it. I think it's safe to agree that for all of us, our number one asset in ministry and in business is our employees. I don't think any of us would disagree with that. We know that a team of healthy employees will pave the way for a collegial environment of stability and high retention. There's always going to be greater productivity and engaging unity with healthy people and an increasing positive morale. And through this pandemic time, employees have been, well, as we all know, disconnected. They've been discouraged. They've been bewildered about the future. And some days they just need someone to talk to. And that is when a caring employer, those on this call, or a supervisor shows up and asks the simplest all questions: how are you doing? And in the 4,700 workplace locations that we serve, I like to often say a chaplain shows up, or in a remote setting sends a text or makes a personal phone call, asks the question, how are you doing? And then listens, encourages, and offers hope with a caring voice. One of my favorite Bible stories is in Matthew chapter 8. It's a story of a centurion leader, a Roman leader who came to Jesus. Now, that was uncharacteristic. Yet the centurion was so concerned about his paralyzed servant, his employee, if you will, that he asked Jesus to heal him. This leader said to Jesus, just say the word, just one word, and I believe my servant will be healed. And that is what happened. And we believe that just one word, one good word from God is enough. And when we offer sometimes one word to a hurting employee, to one of the people who we share life and business and ministry with, just a word of love, a word of hope, a little word of joy, peace, maybe kindness, a gentle word, we see the eyes of our employees just light up. And then a smile emerges, and you can see the joy in their eyes. And that is what exceptional leaders do as they begin to create a culture of caring and affirming. They show it.
You know, Doug, I appreciate hearing what you're saying. Uh, you know, uh, the founder, Gil Strickland, he came and we signed up with Gil. It goes all the way back to 1997. And I saw with my own eyes the care of the chaplains. And I realized we had a lot of things because I saw my work as a ministry and not a job already. And we were already ministering to employees in a lot of other ways, and customers and suppliers. And but the Marketplace Chaplains contributed so heavily toward that caring spirit. Uh, when I sold my company in 2011 to a publicly traded company, the if you walked around our place of business and talked to our employees, they would talk with you as though they own the company and not Bobby Albert. And I think that comes from the caring culture, like you mentioned, and Marketplace chaplains really contributed to that. But having that kind of attitude about their job, you can't buy that stuff.
That's right.
And so I felt so fortunate. So Doug, I know you have another a point of interest that you'd like to share with us.
Well, one of the things that you and I talked about is what does it mean to employees who have been shown care and those who have not? And I think, the question always comes down to every individual person who is under our care. And the question is often asked by an employee, does anybody care? Does anybody care about me? Does anybody really care about my family? In the first century, we go back to the Bible and we see an amazing story again of this time Jesus is in a boat with his disciples on that little sea of Galilee. I've been on that sea many times. And this time the story tells us how a horrific storm arrived really out of the middle of nowhere. And it's so interesting. The first question the followers of Jesus asked their master, dare I say, their employer was, don't you care if we drown? In other words, show us you care, tell us you care. Jesus, say something, just do something. And Jesus did. Again, he just spoke a couple of words and the sea was calm. And employees simply want to know, does my supervisor, does the company owner, does this place I serve and work for, do they care about me and my family? Every month, I make a very concerted effort to shadow one of our chaplains. I've been doing that every month for 6 years, and it's kind of boots on the ground. They tease me sometimes and call me undercover boss, but these visits have taken me to all 50 states and Canada. And I'll never forget my first visit. It was 6 years ago. I'll never forget, it was plant 6 of a manufacturing company. It was 128 degrees in that plant. It made Arizona and Texas heat feel like it was cool outside. And the chaplain and I were walking along, and all of a sudden a high-low driver drove by. He saw the chaplain out of the corner of his eye walking with me. He stopped the high-low, screeched it backwards, didn't know high-lows could squeal their tires, and he jumped off the high-low, ran over the chaplain, picked him up by with his arms in a form of some kind of a bear hug, and he said, "Chap, thanks." And the chaplain said, "Thanks for what?" He said, "For what you told me 2 months ago." The chaplain, talking to hundreds of people, said, "I have no idea what you're talking about. What did I tell you 2 months ago?" He says, "You don't remember?" He said, "No." And he said, "You told me to go home and be nice to my wife." and chaplain, it works. And all of a sudden, we realized that here was a man who had never been told one of those wonderful biblical truths: husbands, love your wives. The chaplain didn't have to quote a verse. He didn't have to open his Bible. He just had to share a good word and show that he cared about this man who had never been told to love his wife, never been shown his whole life. How does a husband love his wife? And that truth sunk in deep. And this man's life was transformed. I found out later that the chaplain led this man to a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And that story and so many more are what we see every day, that lives are changed from the inside out. This is what a caring culture means to an employee when someone cares. I remember walking by an employee's cubicle one day with another chaplain, and the chaplain asked, "How did your son's ACL surgery turn out?" And I'll never forget when that EE responded to the chaplain and said, "Well, thanks, chaplain. Did you know you're the only person who has asked me about my son?" Wow. A chaplain shows up and says, "I care," on behalf of the employer. The American Medical Association shares reasons why employees disengage. Some of you listening in will hear these and just say, "Yeah, we get it. That's true." And the bottom line is, when a culture is not caring or affirming, and in those sterile environments, employees begin to hold back when there is, number one, they said, poor communication; number two, a lack of personal recognition; and number three, a lack of collaboration, of being included. People want to know they have a place in your workplace community. And we all need a kind word of affirmation. I need that, and so do you. And we do not want to work in isolation. So people who sit in cubicles and have no interaction with management or fellow employees soon realize, I could probably do this job anywhere. And so the only thing they're looking at now is pay, benefits, what's easier. Maybe I could do this from home. And they start to seek and wander lost for other careers or job alternatives, and the turnover rate is not good. But then a chaplain shows up and demonstrates care on behalf of the employer. The employee and chaplain begin to talk about those things that are on the employee's heart and mind that no one else has asked, and that confidential, non-judgmental, safe conversation creates a togetherness and a spirit of someone who really cares and will affirm in that moment. One company owner of a publicly traded company that we serve purchased 1,250 study Bibles to have the chaplains have the chaplains give to his employees. And the employees only heard about the Bible and how it was available, and without any pressure, employees began to request one and then another. Well, those Bibles are all gone. Out of 1,500 employees, 1,250 Bibles have been given to employees, and they're all saying, "Wow, this is an amazing company. They even give us a Bible if we want one." And so, some days, caring is so simple, but always powerful. So simple. An employee, I walked by their office and they had Post-it notes all up and down the screen of their computer. And I said, "So what are those?" They said, "My supervisor, every time he comes by, he writes a little Post-it note if I'm not here and pastes it on my computer. And I'm saving those because they mean so much to me." Caring is very simple, but it's always powerful.
You know, Doug, uh, not everybody here today knows what kind of services Marketplace Chaplains, if you allow me to do a commercial for you here, but is, uh, the thing that I think that it was amazing, some of the smallest things that was attractive to our employees with what Marketplace Chaplains provided. Y'all are on call, a chaplain's on call 24/7, and they do hospital visits, and uh, and they do weddings and funerals at no charge to the employees. And you know, I've even, I've seen the chaplains even minister to other family members of employees. And I, uh, I'm just always amazed with how extensive that the chaplains, the kind of work they did. I know that one of them as well would bring by regularly, the bread, the little booklets, I'm sure he got them from you. Uh, and like you said, he helped provide Bibles, and sometimes they would even go to, employees' homes to minister to them. And I do remember one time that I heard about this afterwards because the employees shared it. Is they had a boyfriend that was about to commit suicide, and the chaplain saved that guy's life.
Yeah.
And as you know, I think the people that are here today know that that chaplain was available at the right time, right moment, saying the right things. And of course, we all know that comes from the Lord. So, and it made a difference not only in that employee, but it saved that guy's life. And so, Doug, I know you have a third point that you'd like to share with us, if you would.
Well, yeah, it's real simple. Probably some more stories, but what are some simple ways to show employees that leaders care? And my answer is, again, as I shared a little bit about whether it's a Post-it note or something else, it doesn't take much. It's not rocket science. It's just the intentionality of somehow figuring out the way it works best for you, because we're all different. And we all respond and offer care and affirmation in different ways. But it's really the authentic care for people that sometimes just begins with a soft, kind, personal word of greeting or encouragement. Walking out onto the shop floor, walking around, managing by walking around, I think has been an adage we've learned in business. People love to hear the words "good job," "well done." When I first came to Marketplace Chaplains, I was introduced to our team for the first time, and I looked at them and I said, you know what? We're not going to say thank you around here anymore. And they looked at me like, what planet did this guy just come from? I mean, has he lost his marbles? We're not going to say thank you anymore. And then I went on to simply say, you know what we're going to learn to say? We're going to learn to say when somebody does something, well done, way to go. How about attaboy, attagirl, good job. You know, I really appreciate that. Was outstanding. That was exceptional what you did, as opposed to thank you. We changed our culture in our workspace by thinking intentionally and thinking more seriously about what do people do and how do we affirm them. You see, someday, if you read your Bible, you're going to discover that someday we're going to stand before Jesus, and the words from Jesus aren't going to be thank you. They're going to be well done, good and faithful servant. So I thought, you know, how do you affirm people? Hey, how about with the words of Jesus? How about I love you, I care about you? That's awkward, but we can do that in creative ways. And we can that kind of a joy in creating, again, a caring and now an affirming community. And then when a leader shows personal interest in an employee's family, those questions, that conversation goes a long way. You can ask me how I'm doing and I'll tell you. I might just sometimes say, fine, okay, you know, throw out a little cliche because I haven't thought about me. But when you say, hey, how's Donna doing? How's your daughter Darcy doing? How's your 6-year-old granddaughter Kira doing? Now I've got a story to tell. Now you just poked the greatest interests and loves in my life. And guess what? Everybody likes to talk about what they love and who they love more than anything. And our chaplains are trained well to do that. I'll never forget the first time I was with another chaplain, and he would always lead in with, hey, tell me how your family's doing. And there was always a conversation. It was never just fine, okay. And I think you all know what I mean. And while the company owner and leadership of a company can create a caring and affirming culture, it's a chaplain who's able to come alongside and engage in a more personal, confidential, non-judgmental conversation that never makes its way into the C-suite. Bobby, when you had our chaplains, your employees, there are a lot of things they wouldn't talk to you about, especially if they were struggling and thought for a moment they wouldn't get a promotion, a raise, or maybe they're in violation of one of your values or company policies and they're going to lose their job. But they were concerned about that, and they did talk to the chaplain who helped them work through it. And so our chaplains work together. They work as a team. We put a team of chaplains in every company, no matter the size. And providing that 24/7 contacts for every employee in every company is standard. And then they're there, they show up, and we'll meet an employee at Starbucks. Like you said, they're home. I'll never forget the employee that called the chaplain and said, hey, would you come over? My neighbor has some questions and I can't answer them. And the chaplain showed up and led the neighbor to Jesus. And it's one of my favorite stories. They'll show up at ER. They show up at a funeral home, even the county jail. And while more employees are working from home, and our chaplains now have new electronic tools and media and chatting and video connections with employees through our app. They talk about everything. And our chaplains are there to listen and often just ask good questions, not be counselors or pastors or coaches, but good listeners and caring people, because they're talking about stress, anxiety, fear, depression, more today than ever, marriage. Wow, it's gotten tough out there, especially when couples are staring at each other 7 days a week and they didn't do that before. We're raising children who are trying to do homeschooling, health concerns, and even suicide. And then after those conversations, what's so beautiful is the chaplain then says, hey, I'll see you Thursday, or I'll see you next week. The last 3 weeks, and I'll close with this, Bobby, is in just the last the last week, 3 companies, 2 we serve and 1 we don't even serve, experienced fatalities through industrial accidents. One was a horrific accident where 4 employees were instantly killed when nitrous oxide leaked into a room in which they were trapped. Our chaplain teams showed up in mass from that entire area, 15, 20 chaplains showing up and talking to employees who were just beside themselves, not knowing what to do, what to ask, where to turn. And the owners of each company at the end of those scenarios just simply said, I don't know what we would have done without the chaplains. HR couldn't have handled it. As good as they are, as important as they are, we don't do HR work, but they're so grateful when chaplains come alongside and help HR. One company owner, we don't even serve him. He said, is there any way these chaplains can just stay here? We don't want them to leave. Can they stay through all the shifts? This has upset us so much. And the answer was yes. And so I could go on, but it's not rocket science. It's connecting people to caring people. And I thank God for everyone who's on this call who is showing care to their employees. And we just want to extend the offer to come alongside of you and help make that even better, to be able to go deeper with employees who are really struggling in life. And so if you're tuning in, we just might have a chaplain team for you.
Doug, the story you shared about the industrial accident, it reminds me several years ago, I was in a glamorous moving and storage business. And 99% of our business was outside of our city, moving people from one state to another state. And we were moving, tens of thousands of people a year. And but I remember one day we had also a local crew, and they were finished at the end of the day. They were driving westward down the freeway. It was a real sunny day. The sun was blinding them, and there was another stall truck in their lane where they were going to exit, and they hit the back of that truck, and it killed 2 of the 3 guys, severely injured the third one. And this was a truck that was stalled. It didn't have reflectors out or anything. So, but I tell you what, the chaplains we had at that time, boy, did they jump in like you're talking about. Would go with me to visit the families. You talking about that was tough. I mean, I was shaking, because I've never had to go visit a family like that. And, but what was fascinating is through all of that, we never got sued by anyone. And I contributed to the chaplains, were right along with me to talk to those families. But you know what? The following morning, we had a company-wide meeting, and just the message that chaplain gave all of us that morning, it was like a piece of all. I'm sorry, I'm getting kind of choked. It was a piece in that room at that time, and it had such an impact on our whole company. Well, Doug, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to leave everyone with today?
Well, nothing other than I think people is what matters the most. And how do we care for them? How do we affirm them? Again, it's not hard, it's not difficult. But when we do, lives are changed. And I'm grateful we can not only share that message, but we can show it. and come alongside of everybody who really cares about their employees. And I believe everybody on this call is caring about their employees. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't have bothered. And so we just, if we can help anybody, that's why we're here. We just want to help.
Doug, one of my takeaways, talking about caring, in Gallup a few years ago, they did a massive survey of over 1 million employees and over 85,000 companies. And they were 5 things they found that employees were asking about their employer. And you touched on 2 of them. One, which was at the top of the list, is, do you care for me as a person?
Mm-hmm.
And the other, the one of the other of the 5 was, do I even belong here?
Mm.
And so it confirms exactly what you were saying. So, and by the way, in the chat window, if you have a takeaway, please share in the chat window something here that triggered that what Doug had to say. And Doug, could you also share where people can learn more about Marketplace Chaplains? And also, I know you have a free gift that you want to offer.
Well, sure. It's quite simple. It's our website, www.mchap, that's an MCHAP, USA.com. That simple. The gift we wanted to offer to any of you who would like to receive a copy is a wonderful book that our chaplains give out every time someone loses someone to death or suffers a major personal loss in their life. It's a wonderful little 60-page devotional book that has really impacted the lives of, and I can say thousands of people. We have 38,000 copies that our chaplains who have distributed in just the last 2 years. And it's a marvelous book. We just wanted to make that available to any of you who would like a copy at no cost. And if you want multiple copies for your HR department or have in your desk to hand out when the need is necessary, we'd be happy to work with you and make those available.
Doug, so you know, in the chat window, there's a link to that book. And we will also be sending out in a follow-up email about for what took place today. So before I introduce Bob Payton for our Q&A session instructions, I want to thank Doug, and I want to also thank each one of you who are here today. And I want to thank you so much for being part of our day 4 of our Faith at Work 5-day event. And let's all show our appreciation in the chat window, or simply, clapping your hand or lift your hands for Doug here today. And, since today is our day 4 of the Faith at Work, I want to learn from you, and please feel free to give me feedback directly. My email address is bobby@bobbyalbert.com, and you will find my email address there in the chat window. Our guest speaker tomorrow is another friend of mine, Hiram Sasher of First Liberty Institute, and he will talk about faith in the workplace, how to honor the Lord and the law. And Hiram has taught, I tell you what, I've known Hiram for maybe, 20 so years. And Hiram and the president of First Liberty, Kelly Shackford, both of them have taught me a lot over the years of what is legal and what is not legal in the workplace as far as seeing your work as a ministry. And so you don't want to miss hearing from Hiram tomorrow. And also I have a special announcement is we have upcoming a one-day intensive that will turn average bosses into exceptional leaders. If that is you or someone in your business, I want you to join me for the True North Business One Day Virtual Intensive. It'll be Friday, February 19th, and it will be interactive that will shift your focus, improve your leadership, and transform your business. And I'm offering a deep discount price that is only available who have been part of our Faith at Work virtual event. And the discount, get this now, the discount is only good through Monday night. And you will find in the chat window the link to all the details about it. And I hope that everyone on today will stay for the upcoming Q&A time with Doug. And I want to encourage you to integrate the Lordship of Jesus Christ into every area of your life, be it with your family, your church, in the workplace, or in the marketplace. And now I want to introduce you to Bob Payton for our Q&A session instructions.
All right. Thank you very much, Bobby. And Doug, thank you so much for the presentation today. Great to hear that, and remind me of some personal interactions that I had with the Marketplace Chaplains as well. We just don't realize, those of us who grew up in the church, how many people have no church relationship. And so to see people that would call on the Marketplace Chaplain for the help with a wedding or a funeral of a loved one or something like that was especially touching. That was where their relationship was. They're in the workplace with that chaplain, and that's huge. So that's a neat aspect. I saw it in our local entity, but I'm guessing that happens with the relationships all over the country. Doug, is that a true statement? Is that something that goes on all the time?
It's just constant. The number of confidential discussions that we record, and I say record, our chaplains have an app device that lets us know if they've had a confidential discussion with an employee and the category. And we never get back to an employer with a name and what was discussed, but we do keep record of the number of conversations and the discussions, and it gets into the million of conversations throughout the year. So it's amazing. And the topics, you name a topic, a chaplain somewhere has discussed that with an employee. And some of them are pretty raw, but they're desperate many times. This year, the number of conversations about suicide, children attempting suicide, marriages in deep trouble has just gone off the charts. And the chaplains are there. The chaplain shows up, they have the conversation. They may pray at the request of the employee. And all of these conversations are employee driven because the chaplain establishes a trusting, caring relationship, and the employee knows they feel safe. And the chaplains prove that over the years in the companies that they serve. And they may only be in your company for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours a week, depending on how we arrange that for you. So it's just amazing how God brings these conversations to life.
You bet. You bet. Well, listen, folks who are on here with us, our attendees, if you've got questions, we want to hear from you. You can raise your hand there with the controls on Zoom, or you could just type in the chat window that you've got a question, and we'll be glad to unmute you and let you do that. Or you can type the question into chat. And so that's where our first one is. Someone looking for some comments from you that they do small scale property management and ownership of individual, looks like suited houses, and listening to U.S. Christian Business Podcasts, they've heard of larger scale apartment buildings, giving free suite rent to a pastor or a chaplain as it's available or made available to care for the residents in confidentiality. They have hard business data that also supports providing that too. Or have you heard of that? Have you seen that across the country?
We are familiar with that organization, and Apartment Care is a wonderful, wonderful organization that is doing exactly what this listener has pointed out. I would say if you're in that space, contact them. They do what we really can't do, and they have had marvelous results, and their stories a lot like ours, but they become almost like, while they are a community member, they live in the apartment community. So I think they're called Apartment Life. And if you have trouble finding them on Google through apartmentlife.com, send me a personal email and I will make sure you get connected with them. But by all means, contact them.
That's neat. That's a great way to use an asset and make it a blessing for that chaplain and also for the people. There's another one that's just jumped in here and says the nonprofit provides free tutoring and Christian counseling. And wondering what they might be able to do to help others.
We work as partners with different organizations. Our chaplains understand they're not the end all in relationships. They are the front end listeners, caregivers, care partners, chaplains, if you will, and connectors. We're forever connecting employees to different resources. We work with a number of different organizations, such as I know our chaplains refer people to Hope for the Heart and other ministries like that, Doss McAllister Ministries, especially with the needs of teenagers. There are tremendous resources that are available online. The list goes on. And also, just so you know, we are committed to the local church. I believe in the church, especially when Jesus said, I'll build my church and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Jesus didn't say that about anything else. He didn't say that about Marketplace Chaplains, but he said that about his church. And so when people come to Christ, our chaplains refer people to churches. So almost every year, our records indicate that between 4,000 and 5,000 employees are connected to a local church. I'll never forget the story out of Tyler, Texas. Chaplain led a gentleman to the Lord on a Monday. It was the 2 weeks later on Monday, the individual came up to the chaplain and said, Chaplain, what are you doing Sunday? And he said, well, I plan to go to church. He said, well, I'd like you to come to my church. And the chaplain stood back a little bit and said, oh, wow, you did go to the church I referred. And he said, yes, I did. And me and my entire family are getting baptized on Sunday, and I would like you there. So we partner with everybody we can. We believe that together we're going to be better.
Doug, would you mind sharing your email address so we can put it in the chat window?
My personal email address is Doug Fagerstrom at mchapusa.com. And if you can spell Fagerstrom, you're doing good. If
hey, it's in there.
Just look on the screen. Hey, there we are. Thanks, Bob, for posting that.
See, I told you we got I need a lot of help, so.
I told you, you got to pay those guys more.
Yeah. Yeah, minimum wage, it's kind of tough, So.
Well, Doug, I don't see any other questions coming in right now. If anybody else has a last minute question that you want for Doug, please get it in the chat window or raise your hand and we'll unmute you and lets you ask that question as one who's involved in a lot of human resources and organizational work. Um, I appreciate the confidentiality that you were talking about, Doug. That is, um, there's just so many things that you mentioned it. Employees uh, just can't. They're afraid of getting ruled out or getting fired if they share some things. And that is such a ministry to have that confidential source come around and be there. That really do appreciate it. A couple of things have come in here um, that want to get to. Um, we get to let's see. Question from Mike Davis: what does it look like to have a chaplain? Do do they just show up and walk through the company and chat with the employees? So tell us what that looks like.
A great question, Mike. Thank you. That's often how it begins. The actual beginning is what we call a startup, where the company owner gets all the employees together and introduces the chaplain team to the employees. And then simply they hand out cards and a brochure so that the employees know that here's an electronic way I could contact my chaplain. And then we encourage them all to download an app, our app. It's called My Chap app, that is at no cost to the employee. When the employee or the employer, uh, that is totally our tool that we give away. And when the employee downloads that app in two keystrokes and they put in their code, and if they've once done that, they never have to do it again. So in two keystrokes, they're looking at the faces of the chaplains they know who have come through their company. And if Bob is in, hypothetical Bob is in the hospital, he's just brought his wife Sue in, and he doesn't have a church home because 80% of the employees in the workforce, maybe not your company, but 80% in the workforce are non-church. They have no one in their life. And so they pull up the app, and there they're looking at a chaplain. They click either the chat button, the video chat, or the text message, or the email. 4 ways they can contact the chaplain right now, live, on time. And so Bob types in, hey, Chap, I'm up in the hospital right now. I'm at St. Luke's. What do I do? And the chaplain gets back and says, Bob, tell me what room you're in. I'll be there in 20 minutes. That story is repeated almost every day of the week. And the list goes on. That's how they're available. Then, to answer Mike's question, the chaplains begin building and establishing familial relationships. They walk through the company. They come up to an employee. Now, they know that the employer has said, hey, we're giving permission for the chaplains to come through and get to know you. Some don't want to have anything to do with the chaplain for various reasons. And others, the chaplain walks up and says, hi, I'm Chaplain Bill. Here's my card. And so what's your name? What do you do? How long have you been working here? Well, great to meet with you. If I can ever be of help to you, let me know. The advantage is he gets to see him again next week. And Chaplain Bill says, hi, good to see you again. By the way, who's that picture of that little boy with a baseball bat? Is that you as a kid, or is that somebody else? And he says, no, that's my son, Chaplain. And they started having the best conversation about that little guy in baseball. Chaplain comes by the next week and says, hey, how's our little baseball star doing? Chaplain, true story. He tore his ACL and he's having surgery this week. And Chaplain says, how can I help you? He says, I don't know, Chaplain. And the chaplain says, you can contact me if you want me there at surgery. I'll be there. Otherwise, I'll pray for you. The employee might say, in this case did not, yeah, Chaplain, I appreciate your prayers, even right now. So it's all employee driven. Relationships are established, and our chaplains will go anywhere, anytime to meet with any employee, no matter what the concern, and they show up. Hope that answers your question.
Well, that's huge. One of our guests earlier this week said, "Love wins every time," and that's
Love that.
a beautiful picture of it right there. Mike
Yep.
went on to say that he only has 3 employees. He thinks larger companies in the area might have a large need, but is there a size that's too small for Marketplace Chaplains to be a part of? Tell us what the profile of your companies looks like.
I was up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, uh, walking around, meeting different companies with our chaplains, and I met the owner of an insurance company. He had an adjuster and he had an administrative assistant, a man and a woman working for him. We provided 2 chaplains, a male and a female, to establish a caring, loving relationship with those 2 employees. That's what the employer want, and we made it work. And he didn't have to go to the bank to get a loan because our chaplain was already driving past his insurance office every week. And to stop in and care for these employees was a perfect joy for us. From that to manufacturing plants, to office buildings, to Fortune 500 companies, privately and publicly traded. God has put us into all those spaces. We're finishing up right now those startups I mentioned with a company of 17,000 employees in 10 different locations. And we're having the time of our lives showing and sharing Jesus.
That is great, Doug. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think with that, Bobby, we're going to turn it back over to you.
Yeah, Doug, and something that Bob was asking for clarification is the confidentiality.
Mhm.
And hey, I own the company, and I didn't know what the chaplain discussed, with employees. But one thing that I didn't realize how much our employees appreciated was that they clearly knew that they could stop their work to visit with a chaplain. The chaplain heard me say as well, you can interrupt somebody's work if you want to talk with them, So don't, so that kind of took that off the table for people wondering, am I going to get fired, if I talk to the chaplain? And uh, the other thing that was kind of a benefit that I didn't realize until later on is that, when we had employees that felt like they were being cared for so strongly, guess what, how that overflows in how we took care of our customers. Guess what, how we interacted with each other internally. Guess
Mm.
what, how we served even our suppliers. And we had over 2,800, some people would call them contractors. We call them part of our supply network, all over the country, because we had more business than we could handle. And so just the communication with even our suppliers, the caring attitude flowed that way.
Mm.
And so, those are a lot of little things that I think a lot of people underestimate the value of a culture where people care.
Yeah.
And
And Bobby, I'll interrupt and just simply quickly say, I know our time is about gone, but when one of your employees, say one of your salesmen was on the road from Oklahoma and was now in San Diego and had an emergency appendectomy, true story, we contacted one of our chaplains in San Diego who showed up at the employee's hotel room and helped him get to the hospital, waded through surgery, and made all the necessary connections with his family to show that the company really cares. We're just a tool and an agent for you to demonstrate that. and the stories of coming alongside of parents who are in the hospital, who are all alone halfway across the country. For that employee here, we will do that there to show love to their family. Not in the least is the neighbor across the fence who needs to talk about God.
Yeah. Well, exactly what you're talking about the hospital. We had that happen. We had an employee that's whose father-in-law had very unusual heart surgery in another city. Our chaplain in our city contacted another one in the other city, and that chaplain there in the other city went to visit the father-in-law.
Mhm.
And so you're exactly right. Well, did you all enjoy this question and answer time today? If you can also share in the chat window, your greatest takeaway from the main session, this Q&A session. And I want to thank Doug again and each one of you for joining us for this Q&A session. And let's again show Doug our appreciation in the chat window, or simply, clap your hand or lift your hands or whatever you want to do. And just remember that our guest speaker tomorrow is Hiram Sasher of First Liberty Institute, and he will be talking about faith in the workplace, how to honor the Lord and the law. So God bless you, and we'll see you tomorrow on day 5. So thank you all.